to the Prophecy Club. Today we are going to listen to the audio of the DVD that I think everybody ought to be hearing, and it's really important. It's Secrets of the Illuminati by Dr. Stan Monteith. Now, this is a guy who did a 5-hour radio program every day for years, gone to be with the Lord now. But he spent some 37 years researching the Illuminati, and it won't take you long to discover he's very well informed. And he talks about the truth about organizations like, for example, the Federal Reserve, the Rhodes Scholar, Jesuits, Lucis Trust, Masons, Skull and Bones, Rosicrucians, Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, the Bildebergers, and a whole lot more. An excellent DVD. For a long time, we offered it for $30. However, we put it together in a package with his other DVD, which is also very powerful, Planned Population Reduction. It's talking about how they are actually doing things to kill people. I know that sounds crazy, but that, unfortunately, is the truth of it, and that's what he talks about in this DVD called Planned Population Reduction. And then another DVD in the package is how illegal immigration is destroying America and how world bankers are destroying America. We packaged all four of those DVDs, valued at $120, obviously for a gift today of just $40. It's called the Immigration Gift Offer, available at prophecyclub.com. Now let's go listen to Secrets of the Illuminati.
Titled Through the Eyes of the Enemy. It's written by Colonel Stanislav Lunev, who is a colonel in the GRU. That is the Soviet military intelligence. He defected to the United States in 1992. I've talked to him personally. I've interviewed him, and I believe his book is available here. And he will tell you that the Soviets not only believe that nuclear war is fightable, they believe nuclear war is winnable. They have an anti-ballistic missile system. We have no anti-ballistic missile system. Whenever we talk about building one, the Russians say, why would anybody want an anti-ballistic missile system if they weren't planning on war? We had one, incidentally. We tore it down in the late 1970s under Jimmy Carter because it was too expensive to keep up. The Russians not only have an anti-ballistic missile system, they have 12,000 surface-to-air missiles. They have a plan by which they can detonate a nuclear device in the stratosphere if missiles are coming in aimed at them and can deflect them. They have a program by which they can release what is referred to as brilliant pebbles. They're like little shotgun pellets from fighter planes in case missiles are aimed at them. They have a defense for themselves. They have this extensive civilian defense system with underground caves in which the entire population, or most of the population, be protected, and we have nothing comparable here in the United States. And according to Stanislav Lunev, why the Soviets are preparing for war. But of course you're not hearing about that. Chinese officials compare global trade to economic war. Beijing demands technology transfers from U.S. companies. And there's been a great deal of talk about the Chinese stealing this or that or the other thing from us. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been helping China for years. You honestly believe that Bill Clinton gave all these military secrets to the Chinese communists for a few $100,000 donations? This is simply to draw your attention away from the fact that we brought communism to power back in 1950. And we have helped them at every turn since then. And you really have to understand what this is about. In that little book I referred to, Secrets Revealed, there is a quotation from an article by David Rockefeller that occurred in the New York Times in either 1973 or 1974. And we actually have copies of it if you'd like to get this, in which David Rockefeller talks about the Chinese Revolution. And he said the social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is the most important and successful in history. Let me repeat that. The social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is the most important and successful in history. It was just a social experiment. Oh, they'd killed 70 or 80 million people. It was an interesting social experiment because, you see, there are people who look at the world differently than you and I and have a different attitude towards human suffering and human compassion. Well, there are many people who say that you are entirely mistaken if you believe that this is a world communist movement, because every communist is a socialist. And you remember that Khrushchev talked about your grandchildren living not under communism but under socialism. And the real problem is the socialist movement. Indeed, there is an organization known as the Socialist International. It is one of the 3 or 4 most powerful nations in the world, and most Americans have never even heard of it. But at the present time, the Prime Minister of England, Tony Blair, is a Vice President, the Prime Minister of France, and the Prime Minister of Germany and of Italy and of Spain. They're all Vice Presidents of the Socialist International. They hold regular meetings. They're planning on a world government, and they work towards exactly the same goal that the communists do, a one world government, a new economic system, and a new spirituality. But of course, the question is not what sort of world are we moving into, but who's going to run it, and the socialists believe they're going to be in control. The Socialist International has regular meetings, and if you have access to the internet, you can look up their website and verify who the people are who are involved in this. Now, if you go to Ombry St. Mary, which is the Beatrice Webb House, it's about 30 miles south of London. I've been there, a beautiful estate where the socialists meet on a regular basis to plan the new world. And they had there, it was stolen, but they had there a stained glass window. We have in the original color, but this is simply a black and white reproduction. And this is where you can see their coat of arms. Their coat of arms, you'll see between the two men on the right, is a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing, because everything is deception. You see, FS for Fabian socialism, the use of deception to fool the world. On the right, you see George Bernard Shaw, and then just a little to the left, you see Sidney Webb. Each one of them holding a hammer. Shaw is holding the world on an anvil. The caption above, remold it nearer to the heart's desire. They are remaking the world. Now, then below you see, pray devoutly, hammer stoutly. And so they are going to simply remold the world. That's what it's really all about. And below you see all of these men kneeling before a list of books, among Plato's writings, and the great philosophers, because these men worship reason rather than God. And on the left you see H.G. Wells thumbing his nose at everything going on. An excellent book, The Great Deceit, written by a man named Zygmunt Dobbs. And Zygmunt Dobbs was the number 2 man in the CIO. That was the Coal Workers Union, second only to John L. Lewis. And in about 1951, the Congress was investigating communist infiltration of our labor movement, and he was asked to testify. He testified about the communists because he was concerned about the subversive influence within the American labor movement. And the very evening that he was after he had testified about communism and American labor unions, why John L. Lewis and Walter Reuther and his brother and the leaders of American labor, which is largely controlled by people dedicated to socialism, met and they banned Zygmunt Dobbs from ever again being involved in the American labor movement. And he couldn't understand why these men who were not themselves communists would be so concerned because of his exposure of the communist or subversive influence within American labor. And so he spent the rest of his life studying this. He wrote several books, among which was The Great Deceit. And, of course, what he found out is that the communists and the socialists always work together. They all want the same objective and goal. It's simply who's going to be in charge when this whole thing comes about. And then there are others who will tell you, well, it's really not the communists or the socialists, but indeed it is the humanists. Because every communist is a humanist, and every socialist is a humanist, and they constantly work together. Now, the humanists have all sorts of organizations, most of which I belong to, because I'm a researcher, really, and I want to get their literature. This is the Humanist Manifesto. They published this, Volume 1 and Volume 2, the first written in 1933, the second written in 1973. And here they lay out what they're about. They are pro-abortion. They see nothing wrong with homosexuality. They believe that the criminal needs somebody to back them up and to be behind them, to protect them from the criminal justice system. And so they support many times what the criminals are doing. They don't. They think that they need somebody to champion their cause, to make sure they get justice. They believe there is no God. They believe there's no right or wrong. They believe our children should be taught that they are to determine whatever they want to do, not having any rules that are brought forward by religious organizations. They're dedicated to socialism. They're dedicated to world government. Every humanist is a socialist, dedicated to world government and to socialism. Not every humanist is a communist, but every socialist is a humanist, and every humanist is a socialist. And so there's some people who believe that humanism is the common denominator for everything going on in the world today. There are others, of course, who will tell you that the real force behind what's going on is the tax-exempt foundations. The Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Pew Charitable Trust, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, because these organizations, if you study them, are financing communism and socialism here in the United States. In 1953, Congress commissioned the Reese Committee, headed by Congressman B. Carroll Reese, to investigate the great tax-exempt foundations to find out why they had funded the propaganda arm of the Chinese Communist movement in the United States in the late 1940s to convince the American people that Chairman Mao was not a communist but was an agrarian reformer, and that if China went communist it would be good for the Chinese people. And what they found out, of course, is that the great foundations were working not only to back the Chinese communists, they were actually funding the communist movement in the United States and the socialist movement in the United States. That infiltrated our educational system. They had put their people into key positions in many of the major universities. They had rewritten our textbooks. They had rewritten our encyclopedias. There was an interplay between our government and the foundations, and one example would be Dean Rusk. Dean Rusk just happened to be a Rhodes Scholar who worked for the Rockefeller Foundation, who went into the State Department as Undersecretary of State for Far Eastern Affairs, worked there to bring communism to China, and then, of course, to get us into the Korean War, which was to take our attention off of the tragedy of what had happened in China. And then Dean Rusk left the government and went back to the Rockefeller Foundation, now as the president. He stayed at the Rockefeller Foundation for 8 years. He went back then into government as Secretary of State to get us involved in a no-win war in Vietnam. And then, of course, he goes back as president of the Rockefeller Foundation. McGeorge Bundy, who was the director of the National Security Council, getting us involved in Vietnam, went to work as the...
We'll be right back after this message.
Okay, I have some good news. We're going to extend the Archeology gift offer for one more week. Here's what you get. It's actually 4 discs. You're going to get the 1991 video that I shot when Leslie and I visited Noah's Ark, the crossing side of the Red Sea, all kinds of amazing things on that 2-week tour with Ron Wyatt. That's called Archeology Confirms the Bible. Then I made one back in 2012 called Noah's Ark Confirms the Bible, and this is explaining a lot of the things that was actually on the first DVD. Then we had Michael Root in to make 2 amazing DVDs. First one called End Times Archaeology, second one called Dead Sea Scrolls. 4 discs, 4 titles, and is normally valued at $80, but we're making it available right now for a gift of just $40. We're going to extend it one more week. It's called the Archeology Gift Offer at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. Archeology Gift Offer, prophecyclub.com, 785-266-1112. Last week, get it now. Brian Melvin did an excellent job making this DVD called Hell in a Box and From Hell to Heaven. Excellent talk. I've heard about 30 some odd talks of people that have passed on, some to heaven, some to hell. This is one of the best ones. This held my attention all the way through. Now look, just as archaeology can be really powerful to win people to Christ, and you need that. You need this DVD in your hands to show people this will convince people. I'm saying this will convince the skeptic to get saved very powerfully. You want this DVD and this book, Hell in a Box and Hell to Heaven, and the book, A Land Unknown, Hell's Dominion. DVD gift of 30, book gift of 20, both for a gift of 45, prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. The Hell gift offer. Keep them out of it with the Hell gift offer. prophecyclub.com, 785-266-1112.
And now, back to the program.
The National Security Council, getting us involved in Vietnam, went to work as the president of the Ford Foundation. So there's an interlock every place between foundations and government. And it's sort of like musical chairs. And there are many people who honestly believe that the foundations are at the core of everything going on in the world today. There are other people, however, will tell you it's really not the foundations at all. It's a group known as the hierarchy. And I want to tell you a little bit about the hierarchy. I belong to something known as the Lucis Trust. It used to be known as the Lucifer Trust, but that has sort of a bad name. So Lucius is not as bad as Lucifer. And here's something we got from them in 1999. I want you to look at it. It talks about a festival and conference in 1999. And then it talks about mediation, letting in the light. And of course, they don't tell you what the light is, but they understand what the light is. And then it talks about group fusion. Now, this is the letter I got from them, and I've just copied it here. We affirm the fact of group fusion and integration within the heart center of the new group of world servers mediating between hierarchy and humanity. What are they talking about? Well, they think that's confusing. Let's go down to Roman numeral 2. Alignment, we project a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy of the planet, the planetary heart of the great ashram of Sanat Kumara, and towards the Christ at the heart of the hierarchy. Well, you may not understand what they're saying, but you will before the evening is over. There are others who will tell you that the very, very center of everything going on today is the Illuminati. And, of course, if you study the Illuminati, you know that it was founded on May 1st, 1776, by a man named Adam Weishaupt. And it was an organization dedicated to destroying all governments and all religions and taking over control of the world. Professor John Robinson actually wrote a book. He was approached to join this group. He did not. He was a Mason, and of course the organization was working within Masonry at the time. But he wrote a book to try to expose exactly what was going on. Now, if you read the 1913 British Encyclopedia Britannica, they have a fair amount on the Illuminati. If you read the modern British Encyclopedia Britannica, they hardly ever mention anything about it. And few people understand that the Illuminati was a very real force. My grandfather told my father about the Illuminati because at one time, every person in America of any consequence knew of the dangers of the Illuminati. And of course, if you look on the back of your dollar bill, you will find this symbol. And a pyramid, an Egyptian pyramid, capped by an all-seeing eye. And beneath the caption, Novus Ordo Seclorum, the new secular order or social order. And then you'll see the Roman numerals there at the base of the pyramid, 1776. And of course, the people who believe this is the symbol of the Illuminati will tell you that refers to the date that the Illuminati was founded, May 1st, 1776, not to the 1776 July 4th, when America was formed as an independent state. So many, many people will tell you this is the symbol of the Illuminati. Now, let me take you to the 1913 British Encyclopedia Britannica and what they were talking about. Another and obscure body of Illuminatis, or Illums, came to light in the south of France in 1722 and appear to have lingered until 1794. Having affinities with those known contemporaneously in this country as French prophets, an offshoot of the Camisards. Of different class were the so-called Illuminati, better known as the Rosicrucians, who claimed to originate in 1422, but rose into notice in 1537, a secret society combined with the mysteries of alchemy, the possession of esoteric principles of religion. Their positions are embodied in 3 anonymous treaties of 1614, a short-lived movement of Republican free thought to whose adherence the name Illuminati was given, was founded on May Day 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, professor of canon law at Ingolstadt and ex-Jesuit. The chosen title of this order or society was Perfectibilitas. Its members pledged to obedience to their superiors were divided into 3 main classes. The first included novices, Minervals, and lesser Illuminati. The second consisting of Freemasons, ordinary Scottish and Scottish Knights. The third of mystery class comprising 2 grades of priests and regent and of Magnus and of king. Relations with Masonic lodges were established at Munich and Freising in 1780. The order had its branches in most countries of the European continent, but its total numbers never seem to have exceeded 2,000. The scheme had its attraction for literary men such as Goethe and Herder, and even for the reigning dukes of Gotha and Weimar. Internal rupture preceded its downfall, which was effected by an edict of the Bavarian government in 1785. Later, the title Illuminati was given to the French Martinists, founded in 1754 by Martinus Pasqualis, and to their imitators, the Russian Martinists, headed after 1790 by Professor Schwartz of Moscow. Now, there have been many organizations known as Illuminati, but of course, the Illuminati that was founded by Adam Weishaupt infiltrated the Masonic lodges of Europe, where in large part it just disappeared because now it could remain secret and there'd be no way people could know what was happening. The Illuminati came to the United States in about 1790, and we know that by a speech that was given by Timothy Dwight, who was the grandson of Jonathan Edwards, who was the evangelist who led the first Great Awakening here in the United States. And so the Illuminati then entered the United States. Actually, George Washington actually disowned his Masonic membership because of his concern over the Illuminati and the occult influences that were coming into American Masonry at that time. There are people like Bill Schneebelen and Doc Marquis who have been at the higher echelons of these secret movements, because with Masonry, you do not simply have 32 or 33 degrees. As you'll learn very soon, there are other degrees of Masonry, for Masonry is truly a fraternity within a fraternity. Now, here is one of the more important books. It was written by a man who no one would accuse of being a conservative. His name is James H. Billington. He is currently the Librarian of Congress, and his book, Fire in the Minds of Men, is one of the great exposés of the world occult movement. And he talks about the Illuminati. The Order of Illuminists was founded May 1st, 1776, by a professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria, Adam Weishaupt and 4 associates. The order was secret and hierarchical, modeled on the Jesuits, and dedicated to Weishaupt's Rousseauian vision of leading all humanity to a new moral perfection, freed from all established religious and political authority. Now, one of the more important things that Billington wrote in his book, Fire in the Minds of Men, and I wanted to bring this to you, he talks about the revolutionary faith was shaped not so much by the critical rationalism of the French Enlightenment, as is generally believed, as by the occultism and proto-romanticism of Germany. This faith was incubated in France during the Revolutionary era within a small subculture of literary intellectuals who were immersed in journalism, fascinated by secret societies, and subsequently infatuated with ideologies as a secular surrogate for religious belief. The flame of faith had begun its migration a century earlier when some European aristocrats transferred their lighted candles from Christian altars to Masonic lodges. The flame of occult alchemists, which had promised to turn dross into gold, reappeared at the center of new circles seeking to recreate a golden age, Bavarian Illuminists conspiring against the Jesuits, French Philadelphians against Napoleon, and Italian charcoal burners against the Habsburgs. There were secret societies all throughout Europe in the 19th century, and of course many of them have carried over into the 20th century, and yet if you talk about secret societies today, immediately you are attacked. Why? Well, because of course they don't want you to know about the secret societies of the last century. Now there are others who will tell you it really wasn't the Illuminati at all. The force behind what's going on in the world today is the Jews. And of course there are many, many people, and it's amazing how many you meet across America as you go on a speaking tour, who honestly believe that the Jews are behind everything going on today. And they can point out a certain number of very interesting things. One of them is the majority of people who surrounded Lenin at the time of the original revolution, the number of people in the original government of the Bolsheviks, predominantly they were almost all Jews. And that's true. And every one of them but one was eventually executed. So you don't want to be part of that sort of a Jewish conspiracy. The thing that I point out, of course, is that the people who surrounded Jesus Christ were all Jews too, but that doesn't make Christianity a Jewish conspiracy. Many socialists and communists have been Jews, but many of the finest conservatives I know happen to be Jewish as well, because God's given them very, very special talents and has a very special place for them in His plan for the world. Now, those people then who cannot convince you that it is a Jewish conspiracy generally will try to convince you it is a conspiracy of international Jewish bankers. And they can come up with a great deal of evidence for that. And they will point to the financing of the Russian Revolution by Jacob Schiff, who worked for Kuhn, Loeb and Company. And it has been reported that he gave $20 million to Kerensky following the revolution. And this obviously means it's a Jewish conspiracy. But you have to understand why Jacob Schiff would have given money to Kerensky and to Lenin. And the reason, of course, is because of the violent anti-Semitism that existed under the Tsar. In 1905, there had been a revolution in Russia. And immediately after that, there suddenly appeared in Russia a document called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, and it was circulated widely among the aristocracy, and it basically said the entire world revolutionary movement. And there had already been a number of revolutionary attempts in France and in Germany and in Italy. And it said the revolution throughout the world, specifically the one here, is all a Jewish conspiracy. And this is called the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And, of course, because it was accepted by the Tsar and they began having an organized effort to destroy the Jewish population, they had something known as pogroms, and they would go in and just destroy Jewish villages and kill everybody there. And this was sanctioned by the government. And it was because of that that Jews throughout the world hated the Tsar and hated what was going on there. But there's other things going on. There's a book written by Henry Ford called The International Jew. Many Jews today will not buy a Ford motor car because of Henry Ford's anti-Semitism, though he's long since gone. But he used the Dearborn Independent to push anti-Semitism.
I'm going to interrupt right there, but I'm going to encourage you to get these 4 DVDs valued at $120 for a gift of just $40. I'm going to give you one line per DVD explaining it. How illegal immigration is destroying America. He exposes how satanic forces in the U.S. government are actually allowing illegal immigration, giving access to terrorists to invade America, and a lot more. How world bankers are destroying America by forming a global bank to control all kinds of things. Of course, we know eventually go to the mark of the beast, talking a lot about the Federal Reserve. Then Secrets of the Illuminati, Dr. Stan Monteith, radio program he did for 5 hours every day for years, 37 years. He talks about things like Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, Bildebergers, and a lot more. Planned population reduction. What's wrong with things like DDT, created diseases, milk additives, processes, MTBE, Splenda, and that's just scratching the surface. 4 DVDs valued at $120 for a gift of $40 at prophecyclub.com or 785-266-1112. It's the immigration gift offer. This week, 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. That's what really keeps us going. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. For a limited time, the Prophecy Club is offering Michael Rood's Chronological Gospels and the corresponding map. Michael Rood explains how God instructed him and guided him through countless scriptures to finally compile the corrected chronological Gospels. He explains how he found the corrections to many of the unexplained verses, misunderstood verses, and old English words, outdated. Now he's updated to modern English. He's quick to point out that he is a King James only man, but he has taken great care not to change a meaning, but rather to update with the correct word so we get the modern understanding. He puts all 5 of the Gospels, including Revelation, in chronological order, showing that the ministry of Jesus was in fact 70 weeks long, not 3.5 years long, which has caused many problems of understanding. Michael claims he has made all corrections, and this will bring a massive new understanding to previous errors and confusion in some of the verses. For a limited time, chronological Gospels available through Prophecy Club for a gift of $65. He also offers an 18-inch by 4-foot map of the chronological Gospels so you can quickly and easily find a reference and put many of the pieces of the puzzle together. Gift of $16 for the map. Chronological Gospels, gift of $65, map, gift of $16 at prophecyclub.com. Prophecyclub.com. Order today.